to the Late Night Industrial Relations Show.
Brought to you in part by York University.
Sponsored by Professor Kelly Pike.
Today's debate is:
An independent contractor is a worker that's in business for himself or herself and therefore is not considered an employee.
An employee is defined as a worker who is in a position of subordination to an employer and subject to rules and entitlements set out in an employee contract. Employees don't have control and autonomy.
Now, to start things off, Sabrina, my first argument is that if all workers are considered employees, this is a very strict injustice to independent contractors. Independent contractors have traditionally enjoyed the benefits of not only, setting their own hours or working independently, but also have been rewarded for their entrepreneurial spirit by assuming the profits or losses of their business ventures instead of being limited to a set salary like employees are. Isn't this what we want in the world?
Well, that may be of importance to you, but Prab, with great power comes great responsibility. Are you protected under the Employment Standards Act?
Sabrina, I'm not, no.
Well, these are minimum standards established by the law that guarantee an employee's rights in the workplace. Employees can be protected under these laws, whereas independent contractors, such as yourself, cannot. These laws also come with benefits such as sick days, reasonable notice of termination with up to 8 weeks notice, and paid statutory holidays. Take the example of Samir, the taxi driver. He owned his own car, paid the car's expenses. One of those expenses was paid to a company called Blue Line Taxi, which allowed him to pick up passengers from these designated stops. One night, his throat was slit. He suffered serious injuries and was unable to work for a long time. He applied for benefits under workers' compensation. However, at first he was denied because he was found to not be an employee. So as an independent contractor, what would you do if your throat was slit?
Wow, Sabrina, I think I'm more likely to be hit by lightning. That's what I call, misfortune, bad fortune, or even a bad coincidence. As independent contractors, we actually have the flexibility of setting our own hours. I could be out early in the morning or in the afternoon. I could come home at 4 p.m. if I wanted to be closer to my family and loved ones. That's something employees just simply don't have the luxury of, so we're able to, be closer to our loved ones. Independent contractors also have the freedom of delegating work, also hiring our own assistants, and I'm sure, as employees, you are hired by someone, so you're not able to hire someone as well. They also decide how the work will be done with little or no direction. Sabrina, you could continue being bullied by your employer. I don't have to worry about that.
Well, first of all, I don't take from anyone, and actually, there's Bill 168 that protects employees from bullying, harassment, and violence in the workplace. Anyways, in terms of flexibility, under the Employment Standards Act, employees are subject to be paid overtime after working 44 hours per week. Did you know that 1 in 5 employees work overtime in every given week? As an independent contractor, your hours worked per week could be extremely less than 44. In which case, how would you earn enough money to support yourself and your family and make a living? And if you work more than 44 hours, you would not be subject to overtime pay. And as an employee under the Employment Standards Act, I'm subject to 2 weeks paid vacation. Woo!
So, Rabab, as an employer, I believe that all workers should not be classified as employees. Well, the first reason, flexibility. Hiring an independent contractor means I'm hiring a fully trained individual who is specialized in what they do. So if there's any instance where my sales go down or I should not be in business for a while, I can basically adjust the number of independent contractors without suffering the costs that are related to layoffs, firing, and things like that. So I basically get myself out of potential legal trouble. And did you know that many of the independent contractors are actually part of the skilled trades? So in Canada, there's actually many people that are not entering the skilled trades industry, which is actually a very bad thing for our economy. And according to Manpower's 2016-17 talent shortage survey, as to why employers say it's so hard to find independent contractors or employees, is because 1, there's a lack of hard skills, and 2, there's a lack of experience. So when you're hiring an independent contractor, you know that they come with both. They are skilled in what they do and they're experienced. And what more do you need?
That's interesting, but you have to consider the legalities that are tied to misclassification penalties. For example, if we take the case of Haider Omar Ali, who was actually a father who was earning $3.32 per hour, but what the consequences of that was, he was told what to do, what to wear, how to talk to customers, which took away his autonomy and his control. And also he was trained and supervised. So that means he was subordinate under an employer. So what does that mean? He was not really an employee, he was not really an independent contractor, but he was doing the tasks of an employee. So what that does is that this ties around a penalty where if a business misclassifies their employee, they have to pay a higher amount that you're saving from your flexibility. And instead of this, what should happen is the onus should be placed on the employer instead of the employee to prove themselves as an employee, because these people are already struggling to get positions in this economy that's moving towards temporary and part-time work.
I agree with you that all employers should take onus when it comes to misclassifying employees versus independent contractors.
Of course you do.
However, all employers are not the same, and I'm not like those employers. If I know that an employee should be classified as an employee and an independent contractor should be classified as an independent contractor, then I'm going to make sure that I classify it properly using all the factors that I am aware of. And another point that I'd like to make, as an employer, I get to reduce so much of my overhead costs when I hire independent contractors. For example, payroll, health benefits, training expenses, paid sick days, even costs for office space and equipment. Do you know that independent contractors usually bring their own equipment and they might be working in their own space, or when they do come to my company, they won't be taking up a large space of what I have there. So I don't need to reserve a space for them. And also taxes. Independent contractors are not subject to tax withholdings. They only pay self-employment tax, whereas employees such as yourself have deductions on your wages because that goes towards your taxes and your benefits and things like that. And if I might add, when it comes to training, the only thing that an independent contractor requires is onboarding. I just need to tell them, hey, this is who you're working with, this is what you gotta do, and they'll be productive and get right to work. But when it comes to employees, now I'm gonna have to do an orientation. I'm gonna have to do job shadowing. I'm gonna have to make them see what they actually have to do. And there's so much more cost when it comes to training. But with the independent contractor, I eliminate all of that.
Okay, well, let's forget about your economic benefits, your training benefits, and so on, and let's consider the human rights perspective. No one should have to work every day and for their entire life, because first of all, that is unfair. That's, for example, these people who are, are so trained, they have their own equipment, they're using their own money to buy that equipment for your work. But how is that troubling for them? At the end, they actually don't have retirement pay because they don't have RRSPs, for example, or for example, they don't get a severance pay or retirement package because they're not employees, but they're doing employee-based tasks. You see how difficult that is on them, and for their future, you have to think about the old age or people, for example, experienced workers. And so we should actually consider everyone, not just your own self-interest.
Sure.
Well, now to summarize, today we talked about flexibility, training, benefits such as health benefits, vacation, along with the human rights perspective.
Regardless if you choose to classify an employee as an employee or independent contractor, we need to consider the fact that we're moving towards various trends such as contract work, temporary work, and other precarious work. So what we think is that what should happen is that the changes in laws and the changes in protections should actually move with the trends in employment.
Thanks for watching today's debate on the Late Night Industrial Relations Show.
Don't forget to catch us next week when we debate the importance of minimum wage.
Now we would like to know what your opinion is on our debate. Should all workers be classified as employees, or should the distinction between employees and independent contractors remain?
So be sure to text us at 416-967-1111. Come to Pizza Pizza. Hey, hey, hey.
I'm dying. I was just like...